Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL.
Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host Greg Tompsett along with my very handsome partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, how we doing?
I'm glad that you think I look handsome because I feel handsome tonight. So I'm glad they were on the same page there. Real quick, man, every week I forget what a banger our introduction song is. Like I'm sitting there in the little green room there and just I can't help but jam to it. So it's every week. I forget I should be listening to that more often throughout the week, not just when we do the intro.
Yeah, good people. They're good people. So tonight's show is brought to you by our friends over at bookseats.com. Make sure you check them out. We are so excited for the trip next week. Yeah. They are sending myself, Aaron Quinn, Eric Turner, the three of us out to the NFL draft in style, flying us out to Las Vegas, putting us up at an awesome resort. Going to be able to have a great time. We got our credentials. We got everything set. We're going to be able to bring you guys fantastic coverage, tons of little hits all the time of everything that we're seeing and everything that we're going through. But really excited and going to get to meet the guys from bookseats.com. It's going to be really cool. Make sure you're checking them out. I can't wait for schedule release time. Going to be a ton of stuff for them. All the trips that you guys do to go out and see the Bills play. But really excited to be working with them this year.
Yeah, I was actually just talking to a friend of mine who lives in Michigan now in the Detroit area, and he keeps trying to say that Bills are going to get that Thanksgiving game, and he keeps sending me all the little clips of like the hints that lead to why the Bills are going to get that game, and he's like, you better get out here for it. So I got Chicago, Detroit. People are making me fly around the country, so I'm going to be needing to hit up bookseats.com for some trips, I think, as soon as schedule release comes.
Can't wait. And speaking of Detroit and the good people of Michigan, tonight's show brings along our friend and guest. You know him from at Russ NFL Draft, our man Russ Brown. Russ, how we doing?
I'm doing well, fellas. I just want to know if you guys are coming to Detroit. Are you going to pay me a visit, or are we gonna link up? I'm going to buy you a beer. We're going to go out on the town, have some fun. Like everybody gives Detroit kind of a bad rap as far as like it. You go downtown, it's not bad. If you go on like the outskirts, okay, you're an idiot. But like, you know,
suburbs are pretty nice. I was there. My friend lives in the suburbs. I went there and
visited.
I'm gonna come on. The name. Begins with an M. It's right north of the city.
Macomb.
It's pretty nice out there.
It's fancy out there.
It is fancy pants. He's a fancy guy. I got fancy friends. I hang out with Greg, but
that's what it boils down to.
The rest of them are fancy.
Well, you should.
Other than me, the rest of us are fancy.
You should tell your buddy if he's interested in doing anything for the draft next Thursday. He should come downtown across from Comerica Park at the Brass Rail, where I will be with Woodward Sports breaking down the draft. He can come find me, say hello, tell me he knows you. I'll buy him a beer or two. And
just don't put anything bad in it, right?
Hey,
you know Aaron, here, let me buy you a beer and stick it to you.
That's awesome, man. You're hosting the draft party.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be there will be a lot of different people involved on the whole thing. But yeah, I'll be in and out, giving analysis after 3-4 picks here and there. If any kind of crazy things might happen, I might, I don't know. I don't know how this is all going to shake up. It's kind of my first
night for you guys with that 32nd pick. Not getting it the way you thought you would end up with the 32nd pick, but
Matthew Stafford provided the 32nd pick in the draft. That's the key part.
I mean, you can don't remind me. Like I don't want to start off on this foot. I'm still salty about it.
I'm just saying. It's going to be a long night. That's all.
All right, one more before we dive in. Every time I see the new AT&T commercial and he does the whole thing about, and what if you had your old phone for 12 years and you really loved it and had it the whole time? Like every time I think of you and I laugh every time. It's a really good commercial.
I saw it and I go, this, and I dropped a couple bombs in there and I go, what in the world is going on? He goes out to LA and he becomes an absolute savage. It's like, dude, what in the world? But it was one of those things like he could never do that here because like that's not how the Fords operate and stuff like that.
Yeah. Right.
So
And much deserved.
Yeah.
He hasn't gotten the credit he's deserved all these years.
Yeah, the best commercial he ever did before that one was the one where he's sitting in like basically like the Red Lobster or whatever. He's got like the lobster on his shirt and he's like eating all this lobster and stuff. And he's like, yeah, check out my new shirt. I'm butchering the whole thing, but you can probably find it on YouTube fairly easy. It's very funny. It's like his first or second year with the team. It's hilarious.
So for tonight, we're going to dive in and Russ, you're going to take us through and Bills fans, we're going to try to hold you to one name to watch for in each of these days, because we're going to go through a lot of different things here. We're going to talk about 3 different key positions and maybe some out of the box positions to watch for. But Bills Mafia, you guys are listening. Russ is plugged into everything in the draft. You can see his draft guide online. You can listen to all his show on Thursday nights, hear him all over the radio, all over the place. He's going to tell you what names to watch for at each of these key positions that the Bills are focusing on, but not just in the first round, because a lot of shows focus on those top guys. But we're going to be talking about names to watch for. Maybe if they don't get that position in the first round, what's a day 2 guy to watch for, or a day 3 guy that Russ likes, and be able to walk you guys through some of the names to watch for. So, Aaron, you ready? We'll dive right in.
I want to talk about corners, Ross. Because I trust your opinion on this position, and I know the work that you do on this position. And 2, obviously, this is the one spot where I think Bills Mafia is united in that there's the most glaring need for the Buffalo Bills is cornerback. Now, where I'm interested in getting your opinion on this is actually what led, in my opinion, to this being the topic of how we approach you today, is those day 1, 2, and 3 guys, because I know the Bills have this as a glaring need, but I don't know that there's the urgency like there is in the fan base to address that day 1. So I want to get some names of other guys that you think are fits for the Bills and that can be there for you to grab, because we know these mock drafts, like getting Cam Taylor-Britt in the 3rd, I'm starting to think is a little bit more unrealistic than fans are starting to think. And so we need a little bit of more probably realism into where guys are going to be. So day 1 guys, realistic options, day 1 guys for pick 25. Who do you have as good fits for the Bills?
Well, certainly, I mean, obviously it depends on if these guys are there, right? But Trent McDuffie's probably the first one we start with. He's my 32nd ranked prospect. I know there's a lot of hype about him being maybe the 2nd or 3rd corner off the board, and realistically, so that's probably true. But if there's a chance that he falls to 25 because maybe a team is hesitant of the shorter arms, or maybe they value one of these receivers over him, whatever it might be, he could fall a little bit. But he's one of those rare players that can truly run in stride with the receiver across the field. And to see it, it's like, I when I saw it, I was like, oh, who is this kid? And then I watched more, and actually Anthony Prohaska was the one that told me about him. And I was like, okay. Cause I was getting up on the Washington guys in about a day. And he was like, you need to watch this guy. So I watched him, and all of a sudden after I watched him, boom, he's fallen in the 1st round. And it was like, well, I didn't even get to hype him up yet. So then, the more and more I watched of him, I mean, it was just like, he is so skilled in man coverage. Very, like I said, very fluid lower body, great athletic ability, only allowed 16 catches. So he is certainly somebody that I think to do things in man coverage, whether it's in the slot or outside, he can certainly do that. But then the other one would be my 34th ranked prospect.
But before we get to that 34, because while I got you on, you're talking about Trent McDuffie, I'm torn on him as a prospect, because I talk about this with Greg a few times. I hate to be rigid on any type of like philosophical idea, but I'm having a tough time with the arm length. I really am. And I don't know if you can talk me out of it. When I look at the list of guys who have been drafted with that type of arm length, he would be an outlier at this position to take a 1st round guy and get the type of production that you assume you get at a 1st round pick, a guy that's competing to be an all pro type caliber player, a guy that's in the running of pro bowlers, top of what his position is in the league. And I hate the idea of drafting outliers, especially early. I'll take an outlier, a flyer on an outlier, traits wise or something like that. So can you talk me out of the arm length? Am I going crazy over this right now?
So with the outlier, right, like the guys with the shorter arms, what was their athletic testing numbers like? Where were they athletically? If they were behind and then they had the shorter arms, they were already behind to begin with, because they're trailing, and then their long arms, they can't play through the catch point. But this guy like I said, he's in the hip pocket of receivers on crossing patterns. That's when you get lost in the garbage over the middle of the field, and he gets right through it because he's so quick and elusive. So I think, and then you watch him, like he's very aggressive through the catch point regardless. Right. So maybe he's not going to make that diving catch over the top and swatting the ball before it hits the receiver. But if it's hitting the hands and he's punching it out and playing through that, I think that's a win-win for you. And I think if you look at just him as an overall prospect, going back to high school and things like that, like 100-meter dash, he ran it in 10.82 seconds in high school. Clearly, there's speed to his game. You see the aggressiveness. You see the tackling ability. If guys have shorter arms and they're timid and they don't have that speed, I would be hesitant with you there. But I look at him, I look at Roger McCreary, and I see two guys, shorter arms, but they're physical and they're fluid and they're quick. And I think that matters, especially if you're, in off coverage, you're in man coverage, whatever you're in. I think it plays a huge part. So McDuffie, I'm in on 25 if he falls. Again, I don't know if he's going to be there. Philly with 2 picks, New Orleans with 2 picks in front of him. The Chargers are a wild card because we think they want tackler or receiver, but when we think that they go defense, could they trade out of that spot? There's a lot of different variables. But then the other player at my 34th ranked player, Andrew Booth Jr. out of Clemson. A lot of people are like, why is he so low, Russ? Like he was a top 5 player on certain draft boards out there on the internet. And it's like, well, when I watch him, I see a guy that his feet don't always follow through when he tackles. I thought there was times that he was a little bit behind in and out of his breaks where maybe his feet kind of got stuck in the mud. He didn't test at all during the pro day process, during the combine. He's coming up with lower body ailment injuries. And you guys know how I feel about that. Once you get one lower body ailment injury, I don't write you off as a prospect, but I definitely have some hesitations, especially when you're a corner, because I need to know what your speed is. So I would be hesitant in taking him at 25, but at the same time, you see what the tape is. And it's like, you see a good athlete on tape. You see him using his length to play through the catch point. You see him able to show good patience. And I think the patience is where he wins. So maybe more so in zone coverage and things like that. He's going to win and make his money there. But former baseball player, somebody that I think if he's there at 25 and he's your top player, and not by like a large margin, but if he's your top defender there at 25, I would say go for it. Just because I think he makes a lot of sense. And then just the last one, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know if he's realistically going to be there. I would like to talk about Kyler Gordon a little bit, but I'm going to talk about Kyer Elam just because I think the Washington guys get plenty of hype, and Kyer Elam kind of gets forgotten about in this class. He's 40th on my board, but there's a lot of buzz surrounding him of being a first-round pick. And again, you mentioned the Eagles, the Steelers, the Patriots, the Cardinals who need, defensive back help. Somebody might take him a lot sooner, but if he's there at 25, he's really intriguing because he's got great athleticism, great length. He consistently playing with patience, pad level, and that's key. If a guy's in his back pedal and he's high and he's not like, I don't want to say hunched over, but he doesn't have that proper bend within his lower body, I get a little hesitant there. Now, I think overall there's times where it looks like he's going through the motions. He kind of grabs a little bit too much with his longer arms and things like that. But he comes from a football background. His uncle is Matt Elam. He was a former first rounder in 2013. His father, Abe, was a UDFA in 2005 and played 7 years in the NFL. Kyer played multiple sports growing up, track and field, swimming, basketball. He tried every sport possible. So I like him as somebody that probably is solid in man coverage. There's going to be times where I think he'll play with too much hesitation in zone coverage. At times, like when you think of like Jeff Okudah, right? When he came out, really good man cover type of corner because he was physical, athletic. But there was times that he was very hesitant in his drops, and it looked like he was guessing in his spots. I think kind of the same thing here with Elam, but you just see him sometimes on the outside, and you just can't help but see the potential. And I think when you see the potential and you can get a 5th-year option out of it at 25, that might be the guy where you strike gold with, especially on day one of the draft when you're talking about playing opposite of Trey White. And I'm going to be honest, I could see a little Trey White to his game. So I've heard Xavier Rhodes, but I could see, now that I'm thinking about it, like I could see some Trey White to his game.
I like that you brought up Elam because I do think people are sleeping on him a little bit. He just got ran off right away, and
everyone's just decided, oh, he's a bad tackler, we won't draft him.
Yeah, and I don't know that's
just oversimplifying.
Yeah, I think he's very much in play there, but it's interesting to me because I want to get into these day 2 guys because this is the problem I'm having, Russ, is those names you mentioned. For me, I don't put grades on guys, but I know a lot of people I talk to, they'll only have, say, X amount of 15, 17, 20 first round grades in an entire draft, and the Bills are picking at 25. And so unless you have, like, if those guys are second round guys, there are some of these day 2 names that it doesn't fall off too far for me to wait to day 2. So can you give me some names that you have out there that you would be happy to take home on day 2 and feel good about this cornerback position?
Yeah, well, I mean, realistically, this guy won't be there at 57, but he is 49th on my board. I will throw him out there. That's Kyler Gordon from Washington. Very similar in a sense of, Trent McDuffie, very aggressive downhill tackler, can kind of run in the hip pocket of receivers. And I think he's probably more of like that nickel, but he's certainly somebody that I think is athletic enough to do a variety of things. Now, again, he's getting a lot of first round hype right now. And even if he doesn't go in the first round, he might be an early day 2 pick.
Maybe a trade back to early day 2.
Yeah.
Or if you trade
up
from and then move up. Yeah. Move up.
Well, and that's a great point because there's I've talked about that. There's going to be a team, I think, that trades back into the first round. I think Atlanta's certainly a noteworthy team. They've got 2 second rounders in this draft. They've already met with Matt Corral multiple times. They have the 8th pick. I think 8 is really rich for him, but Tennessee's an interesting team at 26. Like, Ryan Tannehill's not getting the job done. You know what it is in the AFC. You need a quarterback, an elite quarterback. We know what Tannehill is. We don't really know what Matt Corral is. The potential is there to maybe be elite. He just needs some seasoning. But if you take him at 26, you might be able to develop him into something in that offense with the pieces that they have. But they're sitting there at 26. The Bills are at 25. The Bills could trade out, and Atlanta could be like, yo, we'll give you this, this, and that. And you can, you could pick 40th or something, and you've got that spot in the second round. I think it's very realistic. The Jets as well, multiple picks. I think the Jets are moving back in the first round. I could be wrong, but I think they're going to move back into this first round and try to get 3 solid starters on day 1 of the draft with 410 and let's say, I don't want to say 25, but maybe it's 28 with the Packers or something like that. So I think it's very interesting. So Kyler Gordon, realistic option. Just like I mentioned, he does so many different things correct. As far as his athletic ability, the aggressiveness, he recovers really well, even on crossing patterns. Like, there were times that he was getting burnt, but he closed so quickly. It was like, wow. Then you watched him run and it was like, okay, he didn't test as well as you wanted him to, but I think the play speed is what matters because he is somebody is going to close the gap with the play speed and the plays that are happening in front of him. He's able to transition, kind of turn that switch on during the play. And I think that's important, but he's, at times a little bit too aggressive, plays a little too fast at times, and it gets him out of positions, but I like him in the slot. And I think if you got him in the early second round, early day 2, that's a win-win for you. The next one is Roger McCreary, who I like quite a bit. And I watched him down at the Senior Bowl and I saw how fluid he was. And it was like, man, this guy really fits the bill of what I would look for, not only in just a nickel, but I think in a variety of ways of multiple spots on my defense on the outside because of how physical he is. Shorter arms, going to be a problem. But again, he's experienced, 42 games played, inside, outside ability, has the ball skills. He is somebody that had just kind of a quiet, steady career at Auburn. And I could see that transitioning to a place like Buffalo where it's a steady, quiet career. He's not going to get picked on. He's not going to get, he's not going to get mossed all the time. Sure, he's going to lose reps. He's going to make mistakes, but he's going to play opposite and he's going to do a really good job. And then just lastly, for a day 2 guy, my boy, and you mentioned him already, that's Cam Taylor-Britt out of Nebraska. I love this kid. Talking to him down at the Senior Bowl, I mean, he was so energetic and he was just, I don't want to say it was like a boring morning because it wasn't, but it was early in the morning and he had the energy and he was like a lightning bolt that kind of struck into everything that was going on. But I love his skill set, plays with really good patience. He understands, he's so knowledgeable of where he needs to be positioning within his drops. He's physical. If you watch him, that first play against Michigan, he lays somebody out on the sideline. And there's times where the physicality kind of gets in the way down in the red zone. It's like, okay, stop doing that. But there are just those types of plays.
Coach that stuff out, yeah.
You can coach that stuff out. And in this defense with this coaching staff, if that's your guy at 57, I mean, I think that might be a steal. He's 59th on my board.
I love the way you're talking now.
And yeah, and I just, he's feisty. He's a leader on the field. He's going to lose at times, with his tackling technique. He might tackle a little high, might get a little too grabby. There are definitely times where
he's not scared to get in there, though.
And he's not scared to get in there. And that's the big thing. The double moves is what he's got to get better at. I mean, there's just times he bites on, the slant route, and then the go route's happening above him. And it's like, okay, you got burnt. But
we got Micah and Jordan for that.
It's nice to have safety like that.
But that's the other thing. You mentioned safety. He has experience playing there. Like if you watch him, he plays outside, in the slot, down in the box, single high. He's in so many different spots that I look at him as like a team captain of 2021, majoring in criminal justice. Like I look at him and I just say, I don't want to say you build a franchise around this guy, but he can provide a spark to a secondary that I think needs it.
I love it. Now, I hope it doesn't get to this point, but I've been in favor of the double dip where you get a Cam Taylor-Britt, and then later on you get somebody that you can just kind of fill this depth of this room. And I think that's important. I think the double dip's totally in play here for the draft if the Bills keep some of these later picks. So day 3 guys, if we're keeping some picks, who's some guys you would throw in this room as hopeful depth that can latch onto this roster?
Well, I don't know if this player is going to necessarily be a day 3 guy. He might be an early 4th rounder. I personally would be a little surprised at it. But that's Coby Bryant out of Cincinnati.
I love him.
I will talk about him just simply because I do have a 3rd round grade on him, and there's a chance he falls out. But he's an above average athlete, really good size for the position at 6'1", 193. He plays in phase with receivers while they're in their routes. He's patient. He's physical through the catch point. Like, he trails very well. And it's like, it looks like at times like he's walking the dog, and then he just finds a way to get in front of the ball and in front of the receiver. And it's like, that is the stuff that you're talking about when you need a solid number 2 corner. And he's always kind of lived in the shadows of a number 1 in Sauce Gardner. And it might happen with Trey White, or it might.
I love that it gave him more reps, like that he had more targets that he had to prepare for because teams were avoiding.
What happened to Levi here?
Yeah. And he's just, I think when you look at the production side of it too, like 10 interceptions in his career, 45 pass breakups, like he's productive. He's got his head on his shoulders. He handled the media really well at the Senior Bowl. I sat behind him on the airplane, by the way. But no, he was really awesome, and just somebody that he gets it. And I think if you put him in a place like Buffalo that I don't want to say is built a different way, but like they're built a certain kind of way, and they need certain types of guys. He would be a really good fit there, especially if it was a late 3rd rounder or maybe an early 4th rounder or something like that. But then the other guy is somebody that he always seemed to make plays. I think he's certainly a 4th round type of player, and that's Mario Goodrich out of Clemson. 6 foot, 176, a little bit thinner than you would want him to be. His fluidity is at times, he's a little stiff in his hips. His long speed got tested on tape, but his final 7 games of his career were some of the best football he's ever played. 2 interceptions, 8 pass breakups, 1 forced fumble, very consistent downhill tackler, always putting his hands in on the football, punching the ball out. So I really like his skill set, and I think there's special teams value to his game. I haven't really talked about that. He's a special team type guy. He's a leader guy. Somebody that he fits what I think the Bills would use for, I don't want to say a number 2 corner, but a depth piece. If you double down, like you mentioned. So maybe they do go Cam Taylor-Britt in the 2nd round, another player in the 3rd round, and then somehow in the early 4th round, they get up back in there and they take a Mario Goodrich. I think that's a great way to kind of, I don't want to say round off your draft, but get it off to just a phenomenal start. And then you have rounds, maybe 5, 6, and 7 to kind of round it off with whatever you need. But then just the last guy. And I got a lot of guys. Again, I can talk about just about anybody, but Jaquan McMillan, East Carolina, excuse me. This kid has been really, really on his rounds. The Lions really like him. I know that for a fact. And if the Lions like him with how that regime is kind of built, I could see the Bills kind of being in a similar mold of just football guys in that regime, guys that get it. And I think McMillan is just a football player, smaller school guy, listed at 5'10", 183, but he's experienced, and he is going to, I think, be a 5th or 6th round type of player, but he brings you some special teams ability. He brings you, I think, maybe more of that nickel role. And if you did go Cam Taylor-Britt to play kind of a versatile chess piece, and then in the 6th round, you take this McMillan kid, he's maybe your slot down the road and special teams value, that's a win for this organization, especially considering, as you mentioned, double dipping, kind of going back to back on certain guys. So those are some players that, there's a lot of names there. I know 6 or 7, maybe 8 or 9. I don't even know how many I went through, but I like this corner class. And I think this is the time for I think the Bills can take advantage of it.
So switching over to the other side of the ball, these guys are going to have to cover. Let's say they do double dip later on at cornerback. Maybe one of the reasons may be because they go with adding another weapon to Josh Allen here in the first round. What's a name of a receiver? A lot of people talk about kind of a break in the wide receiver tier. Do you have it as a top 5, a top 6? And towards the tail end of that, maybe who's the guy who could make it to 25 for the Bills?
That player would be Jahan Dotson. Now, I have 5 first-round grades in the top 21 of my board, and Jahan Dotson's number 5 on that list. I really like his skill set, but a little bit thinner than what you would want out of the position. And he is, I don't want to say he's strictly an inside receiver because he had over 1,200 snaps on the outside playing out wide, but because of the size, he might get tested at times on the outside. So he might be a little bit better suited inside. But I'm still going to play him inside, outside, and with Gabriel Davis, Stephon Diggs, I would rotate those guys in and out in different spots. And I think you can win there, especially if you've got Diggs, maybe running in the slot and he's running a post and taking the safety, and Dotson's one-on-one. He makes some really acrobatic catches. He's for me, the best natural hands pass catcher in this draft.
I've heard a lot of people say that. Best hands in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, he's just consistently catching with the diamond. He's doing the things exactly as Daryl says here. I mean, it's just one of those things that he's consistently doing, and I love seeing it. He's very fluid within his routes. He has the burst after the catch. He can be used in jet motion, orbit motions. He can be a nice little chess piece. I'm not saying Deebo Samuel handed off to him, but you can use him in a lot of different ways. And there's a lot of question marks of if he makes it into the first round or not right now, which I find interesting. BetOnline's got his draft stock or draft position at 32.5. I always find that interesting. I think they probably want you to take the under there, but that tells me that maybe there's the intel of teams want him in the early 2nd round. So he's interesting. And if he's there at 25, you're not getting him at 57. Is this kind of like a Chris Godwin situation with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? I'm not trying to, pluck Penn State with Penn State, but that's kind of the mindset that I got with it when I viewed where his draft position is right now. The other guy is George Pickens out of Georgia. There's a lot of buzz around him right now. You've probably seen on Twitter, but he's a fun player, man. Blocks his tail off. He gets after it. Very physical, very acrobatic. We'd be talking about him, I think, in the first round, and he'd probably be a lot more of a realistic option at 25 had he not torn his ACL, because there's, I don't want to say a lack of production, but there is, him just not being on the field. So I look at him though, and you see the physicality, you see what he provides as far as a pass catcher, the vertical threat ability, and I don't want to say he's like Emmanuel Sanders because he's bigger than Emmanuel Sanders, but maybe he could take the top off of defense at times and do things maybe in the short areas of the field because he is so physical. But I think a player like that helps those two receivers they have in Davis and Diggs so much because of just the body control from him at times. I mean, he's catching the ball with safeties and corners in his face, and he's making the catch over him. It's like that's a special talent, and I think that would go a long way with Josh Allen. So I think he is a realistic option at 25, and a lot of people don't talk about it.
So let's say they do go with a Booth or an Elam or someone like that on day one. And then they want to pivot on day two. Who are some of the receivers you like in that range? It sounds like there's a lot of intrigue in the depth of this class.
Yeah, and I mean, at times I kind of wonder, like, is that ultimately the direction that they go? But somebody on day two, I mean, realistically, I don't think Christian Watson's going to be there. I could gladly talk about him if you guys would like, but I personally, I don't think he's going to be there. But somebody I think where they're selecting realistically, the two guys that come to mind, David Bell out of Purdue, which might be a little rich for him because he didn't test great by any means, but if you get him at 57, he can maybe be that bigger slot receiver with some ability on the outside. He runs his routes relatively well. He uses his hands and length to his advantage when running his routes and creating separation. He does show some after the catch ability. Not going to be a burner, but again, short areas of the field, down at certain down and distances, you just kind of feed this guy, bigger body type of guy. And nickels and linebackers and smaller safeties are going to struggle against him because he does kind of create that mismatch. So that might be a benefit for you at 57. And I mean, you look at Gabriel Davis, he fell in the draft and the Bills scooped him up, and kind of the same thing here. David Bell might fall and the Bills could scoop him up and it'd be really beneficial.
Couple guys here asking about Calvin Austin. Is he in that range for you?
I struggle with Calvin. I mean, I don't think in the second round, he could certainly go a lot sooner because of the track speed. I view him more of that third round, fourth round type of guy. And I compare him to Tariq Cohen. I know that's not a receiver, but I think he can play a similar role. And if I had to pick a true receiver, it would probably be like Taylor Gabriel, but he's just somebody that I think can play out of the backfield in the slot. He's going to catch swing passes, screen passes. He's going to push vertically up the field, and he's going to try to moss somebody, but he's going to get tested. Like he did it against Marcus Jones of Houston a couple times, but Marcus Jones and him are damn near the same size. Like that's not really a win for you. But if you're matched up against Jalen Ramsey, he's probably going to lose that battle 10 times out of 10. Or a Jair Alexander, or even Trey White in practice. He's probably going to lose that battle. So Calvin I like, but I just like him on that later day 2, early day 3 type of guy. But the other guy would have been Jalen Tolbert out of South Alabama. Just a great tracker of the football, former baseball player, and it shows. I mean, it looks like at times when he's running down a ball, he is tracking down a fly ball in center field. Like that's just the type of player that he is. I think he can win on the outside for them. And realistically, 57, probably an option. It might be a little rich for some, but I think in that second, third round range, he's an option. He had a relatively good Senior Bowl. He's got good size to him. I mean, like good muscle definition to his body. So there's no like concerns like Calvin Austin, smaller frame. But this guy, I really like, and I think teams are going to really take a liking to him as well. And I could see Buffalo being that team.
Nice. How about for in the later rounds here that they end up going with some other positions early on or want to add a flyer to compete with someone later on? Who are some day 3 names that you like at receiver?
Start with Khalil Shakir. I really like this kid out of Boise State. He could be a day 2 guy, but he can play inside, outside. He's got this natural release package. A lot of people want him to be like this Amon-Ra St. Brown type of receiver. And I just don't think he has the same frame as Amon-Ra. He's not as strong as him, not as well built. But when you think of like those smaller but compact slot receivers, I think he's kind of that guy. And the biggest concern with him is just drops. I hate bringing up a guy with drop issues, but he had 18 in his career and 10 happened this past year. But don't fear, Jerry Jeudy had 10 or 11 drops when he came out. So drops they happen. Concentration drops, bad quarterback play, maybe a bad game or two where you're playing against a really physical defender. So I think Shakir will be fine in the NFL. And if he goes to a place with good pieces around him, it just makes him that much more better. And then the last guy, Velus Jones, Tennessee. I really like this kid. I know people are off on him because he's 24, 25. I don't care about age when it comes to a player. If I can get 4 or 5 years out of him on the second or third day of the draft, that's a win for my organization. If I win a division title, if I win a conference championship, I make it to the Super Bowl, your birth certificate's not showing up on the Super Bowl trophy. It's not there on the Lombardi. It's just us getting championships, championship rings, baby. So like with Velus Jones, he was catching passes from Sam Darnold back at USC, transfers to Tennessee, and he does okay for himself. He's a special teams type guy, natural punt returner, natural kick returner, but he's a smart kid off the field. He's already got a master's degree. He's working on another degree. So I think
wasn't used well in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And he wasn't used well in Tennessee, but also bad quarterback play. But you watch him at the Senior Bowl, one-on-one situations. He's very shifty in his routes. He understands the nuances of good route running. And I think that comes with his experience throughout college. Different receiver coaches, different coaches overall. And I think that actually benefits a player. It might not help them, necessarily be the production king or the guy that you want him to be in college for stats. But if it gets him into the NFL and he gets a good NFL coaching team and a regime like Buffalo, I really think he could skyrocket.
For the Bills, and I don't think Bills fans necessarily want to hear this, he could do the thing that I want Isaiah McKenzie to do, which is be your returner and that fifth wide receiver gadget option, and then kill 2 roster spots with 1 stone, which I would love to clear up a roster spot for a punt returner. But do you have any more guys for that day 3? Because if not, I want to rapid fire some interior offensive linemen with you.
We can. Well, I will throw one more out there, and this is more of kind of. I'm sorry. This is more of like this mixed bag of the second or third round. You guys know I love this stuff, so I could talk it all day long. And I wake up oddly at like 2:30 in the morning thinking about Jalen Petrie.
Yeah, don't mess with me when that happens.
Yeah, sorry. If you hear like loud breathing into your phone, it's just me.
Yeah.
But John Mechie's the next guy.
We met with the Bills.
Yeah, he's met with the Bills, and that's why I bring him up, because I know he's met with the Bills, and he's interesting. Injuries have been a big problem with him, but he's a tough dude, man. He is a tough SOB, the type of guy I think you could maybe set some examples with for younger players. Like, hey, he had to overcome this, and this to get to where he's at. And I think when you watch him run routes, like, he is very shifty within his routes. He's my 80th ranked player, but he's very shifty, and he is, I look at him over the middle of the field, and I think Josh Allen could feed him the ball over the middle on a crosser or something like that, and he's going to take it and go and create after the catch, and that's the key. So while he's coming off a torn ACL, he had 15 career drops, 14 over the last 2 seasons. I'm not too worried about it. I can put him in the short areas of the field, the intermediate areas of the field, in my slot position, and he's going to take off. His brother Royce plays for the Toronto Argonauts in the CFL, so Toronto, Buffalo, not too far away from each other. Kind of keep the family connected.
That's it.
I think it'd be a great fit.
Awesome, love it. So we're gonna go rapid fire through this interior offensive line because I want to get to this mock with you tonight. It's not as much of a need, but I do think that Bills fans are considering Ryan Bates coming back as a lock at the guard position, and I'm not there, and I don't think the Buffalo Bills are there. I think they, at the very least, they want depth, future replacement for Roger Saffold. At the most, I think they're willing to have a guy come in and compete with Bates for that starting position if the board falls the right way. So give me one name, day 1, day 2, day 3, interior offensive lineman that the Bills could walk away with and feel good about.
Day 1, I'll say, I'm not going to say Zion Johnson or Tyler Linderbaum, and I know this is rapid fire, but I'm too detailed to have.
That's all right. You're all right.
Yeah. Tyler Smith, Tulsa, would certainly be the number 1 guy in the list, because I think he gives you some guard tackle flexibility, very heavy hands. Placement's got to get better. I mean, it's way too far outside, but he's nasty, man. He plays with the physicality, and some people I've spoken with think he can actually ultimately go in the top 20. You look at a team like maybe the New Orleans Saints, who have a need at tackle. If there's a run,
this year's Alex Leatherwood.
Yeah, right, exactly, which might be crazy. Or a team like the Los Angeles Chargers, who don't really need him to be an elite tackle. But
Joe Marino loves him too, so I mean, he loves that physicality.
Yeah, Joe and I have talked about him a little bit on the side, and I mean, we both are very much in the same idea of, we like him on the outside, but he could maybe bump inside. I've got him listed as a guard because I think that's the natural fit for him, because you just look at his feet, heavy hands, that mauling type of player. The next guy on the second round, or just kind of day 2 of this draft, I'm gonna say Ed Ingram from LSU, somebody that doesn't get talked about enough in the second day. I think he's a really quality guard. Somebody that maybe falls into, exactly. But yeah, no, I mean, with him, I mean, he is a quality guard, kind of falls into that kid that went to Seattle that I'm Damian Lewis, not trying to scout the helmet there, but just kind of a plug and play guard for you. And maybe even more comparable to like a John Simpson or something like that. But I really like his skill set as maybe that mauling left guard or even right guard for you. You just maybe put him in and maybe he doesn't start right away, but I think down the road he could. I think he chips well and climbs well, so I like him. And then the last guy, Lacita Smith, Virginia Tech. I've been all over him from 2 years ago. I love his skill set. I think he'd be a fit for the Bills. Shorter arms. It kind of forces him to play a little bit too much chest to chest, and he might lose against faster edge rushers or more stronger, defensive tackles or something. But I think he is somebody that understands what it takes to win at the next level. He's going to work hard. And he even told me that down at the Senior Bowl. He's like, I got to get my feet faster. I've got to stop leaning so much into my blocks. I know what I need to do. I'm going to get there. It's going to take me some time to really figure it out. So I like him as a left guard, right guard. If you take him day 3, I think it's a win for them.
So let's dive right in. You can put on the hat of Brandon Bean, and we will go through a mock draft simulation. Aaron and I will try to lobby you into who we'd like to see, but you will make the selections here. We'll jump right in and get started. And the clock is running. We are going. Obviously, we'll talk through some of the guys.
Oh, Garner at 10. What the? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I think there's a chance he should be number 2 to your Lions. But we'll see where he goes.
No, I will not make it out of the brass rail alive if that happens. and he's from Detroit, and people do like him, but no way.
So you mentioned Jahan Dotson. Let's look at cornerback. We've got McCreary, Elam, Gordon. At wide receiver, you've got Dotson, Burks. Interior offensive line, you've got Kenyon Green. What are some of the names? If you could go off the way you. So here's a quick question: do you see Daxton Hill as a potential outside corner, or is he more exclusively interior, whether it's safety or nickel?
Well, if I remember correctly, he only played 8 snaps as an outside corner, so I don't see him on the outside. I think he's athletic enough to do it, but he's going to probably play more in the slot and more so just that safety.
For me, people talk about that value at 25 and that pick. For me, it's hard to take that project on at 25 when you
the assumption that he can convert,
or the assumption that because you really, if you're in the Bills position, you need a guy that's going to be able to play some reps this year with Trey White's injury, right? And so if this is a project that could take 2 to 3 seasons to fully convert over to outside corner, if you think he can come in and play right away, but like you said, I haven't seen it, man, and that's hard for me to invest that in a first round pick.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, what type of scheme are they trying to invest into this defense? If you take him, is he going to be that third safety? You're going to run a lot of 4-2-5. You're going to run a lot of 3-3-6 type stuff, or 3-3-5, type stuff. Like, what kind of defense are you going to ultimately run here? So, I mean, we didn't talk about him. I'm really intrigued with Kenyon Green. I think 12's a little rich, but I do like him a lot. I mean, he is very solid, kind of forgotten about. Realistically, though, I just don't know if he's going to be there. I'm going to be honest. I mean,
here's a take I want to ask you about, because every single draft I do, and I know these mock boards aren't fantastic. They're not perfect. This is how team boards are, but every time I do these, dude, and I post them, there's no way that dude's at 25. And it's different guys all the time. One of these dudes is going to be here at 25. It might not be Kenyon Green, but people say the same thing about Trent McDuffie, Olave, Jameson Williams, Zion Johnson, like all these names that are hovering in these 20s in all these drafts. Everyone's like, no, there's no way they're going to be there. One of these guys is this class that deep? Like, how many first round grades do you have in this class?
Looking at the board here, I have 21 confirmed first round grades. And then 22, 23, and 24 were borderline first, and that was George Karlaftis, Trayvon Walker, and Trevor Penning. So,
sorry to go off topic there, but I keep hearing like, oh, there's no way this guy, but it makes me think one of them is.
And on top of that, we're wrong about who's going to go where every year. Not consistently. Like, hey, some really good people. Russ, I know you were pretty solid in your accuracy last year, but even the best people are 40, 50%. Like, it's really hard to hit on a ton of the names. And there's always guys, nobody had Alex Leatherwood where he was last year. Nobody had,
I think I did, actually. I think I did have him go to the Raiders.
You're amazing.
What a flex.
Fantastic.
Sorry, I did do
No,
that. I did do that on the Woodward show today as well. I was like, they were talking about Peter Schrager, and I was like, very connected, blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah, he's very connected, but I had more mock draft picks right than him last year. Sorry.
So
I didn't mean to do that. I love his work. But
what's the pick here?
So realistically, I don't know if Kenyon Green's going to be there, and with that, I'm going to pass on him. I'm going to keep it realistic, and I'm going to go Jahan Dotson. I mean, I think he's a sleeper type pick for this team, and for so long we were like, oh, the dream is Jameson, oh, the dream is Drake London or Chris Olave, and those guys won't be there, but Dotson could be there, and if he's there, I mean, I think that's a tough call to pass on him.
So now coming up here,
of course he's there
at 57. Kenneth Walker right there at the top of the list. Dylan Parham, a name we've seen linked to the Bills in the second round. Chad Muma, Tyler Smith,
your boy Tyler Smith,
another name that's there, and that again, this is another one that I think there's some positions where you're not sure who's going to fall. Cam Taylor-Britt is there.
Let's get him.
There's some nice options here. That's a tough call between.
It is a tough one.
Kenneth Walker, Dylan Parham, Tyler Smith, Cam Taylor-Britt. That's a lot of choices.
Man, I don't know. I really don't see Kenneth Walker being here. I hate to burst the bubble, but he is there. So I'm going to say screw it, take him, because I think it's a need. I think it's a position they actually do value. I wouldn't be surprised if they took a running back in the first, but like I said, I could see a trade back.
The whole time I've been in the position that if one of those top guys make it to that next pick, and Cam Taylor-Britt went 86.
He's not going to, he's not landing into the Bills anymore. I think I'm taking personal credit for the Cam Taylor-Britt bump.
You have really
in mocks. I've bumped him up, so he's not falling to the Bills anytime.
But yeah, I think if one of the Walker or Hall or Spiller make it to that 57, I think you could see movement there. But so so far now we've started 2 offensive weapons. We've given Josh Allen, Jahan Dotson, and Kenneth Walker. So now interior offensive line, we've got Salyer, Lasita Smith, and a name you brought up on the show.
Kim Jurgens, I like a lot.
What are your thoughts? I've heard some people talk about Josh Williams out of Fayetteville State, mostly complaining about not being able to get film on him. And you mentioned Coby Bryant earlier, Martin Emerson, Mario Goodrich, some names you brought up. Have you had a chance to do any work on Josh Williams or know much of him yet?
I mean, I was able to watch him a little bit down at the Senior Bowl, and I thought he was competitive, man. He was pretty aggressive. I thought there were times in one-on-one situations, especially down in the red zone, he had some impressive reps that really caught me. I don't want to say off guard, but really kind of had me like, okay, I need to watch this guy. And then obviously I've been asking around, and I can't get tape to save my life, so I have nothing to really say further than that. Sorry, I'm hiccuping, but I'm going to say Coby Bryant here if I had to pick.
Hold on though.
Yeah,
is Hall really still on the board?
Yeah, that's crazy.
At 86,
they have Breece Hall still here at 89.
I didn't realize he
obnoxious.
He was right up there for a while. I don't know why he's falling.
I love Isaiah Likely, so that's another player that I'd love to see. But I do think if they waited this long, I'd love to see a cornerback, and I think Coby Bryant being one of the best available there makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's what I got to do there. They don't pick again until 130. I can't. Yeah. I think these are the 3. If I had to value what their needs are, these are the 3 biggest needs for this team. If
I
you
was
had to
going
put
to
a
ask,
need on it.
How about that? The story for Troy Anderson out of Montana State started as a running back, moved to quarterback, then moved to linebacker to be Deep Conference Player of the Year. It's ridiculous to see someone with that versatility. And actually played some linebacker while he was playing quarterback. Just a crazy prospect. And obviously I know it's Montana State and it's at a FCS level, but man, that's just a crazy story to have a guy like that. And then shows up at 6'3", 250 and runs a 4.42. It's just a freak of an athlete.
No, he really is. And he is somebody that also really tough to get some tape on. I think I have one game of him maybe. And you can certainly find a lot of stuff of him, on the internet as far as, games and highlights and, full games and stuff, but it's hard to break down linebackers, like you're looking at it and you're like, is he in a 20? Is he aligned in a 50? Is he in a 30? Like, where the hell is he on the field? So it's hard to say, but yeah, very, very great story. I almost considered him there actually at 89. I was like, man, But then I saw the corners that were kind of going, and I was like, no, I gotta go another route. So
well,
I do see a guy.
It looks like it made sense. Still a couple late day 3. Again, we could maybe this pick or the next pick look
Emerson
at that double
or
dip.
Goodrich, yeah.
Emerson, Goodrich, some options still there
Yep.
At this point. What are some positions you want me to filter to?
I'm Jones off the board to the Ravens here. Velus Jones Jr. off the board, right? That would have been a great spot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the linebackers there of Ouachita and Beavers. I'm very intrigued with them. I don't think Ouachita will be at this spot. I don't even know if Beavers will be there. I don't know if either guy really fits what they want to do. And I'm going to be honest. You got Matt Milano still. You got Edmund. You got Edmonds. I'm gonna pass on the linebacker, right? Maybe altogether. And you stay here at interior offensive line. And are you able to scroll up, or maybe he's at offensive tackle?
Let me see.
Right there, Cordell Volson out of North Dakota State. I would take him at 130 in this spot. Former basketball player in high school. He had 35 career 35 career double-doubles, 33 career blocks, set school records for that. And not for career, I'm sorry, but in a season. He was a walking double-double on the field. I watched him 2 years ago after the 2019 season. And that was when I first saw Trey Lance. I first saw Christian Watson. I first saw this guy that went in the second round last year to Tennessee and Dylan Ray Duns. And I'm like, man, who is this 67 kid? And I started posting clips, but he is a right guard through and through, a very physical type of guy. And he is just somebody that very fun to watch. He had 100 knockdowns a couple years ago, like physical type of player, just screams Buffalo, cold weather, put him down in the trenches. Maybe he comes in and plays like an extra lineman at times. Like maybe they bring in a sixth lineman in a heavy package or something.
They did some of that with Tommy Doyle last year because his athleticism, almost like a big blocking tight end.
Right. And I think that's a win-win for them. So I see some corners here on the board again.
So far we got wide receiver, running back, cornerback, and then interior offensive line, even though Volson's listed as a tackle. So, linebacker, safety, a second cornerback.
Yeah, so what's there at corner? Man, I wish Darian Kendrick wasn't bad.
That's
what Greg says about me.
Running a 4.8 is concerning for you at corner.
Yeah. So there is a guy on that list that he's sitting there at 243, Gregory Jr. I'm not even going to bother saying his college, maybe Ouachita Baptist. He was really intriguing to me. I'm gonna say that's the guy we double dip on. Not now, but in a few here. I think you go to linebacker.
How about anything intrigue you?
What about?
Yes, man, it's so rich though. Why is Veron McKinley so low? I don't understand.
I like Juanyeh Thomas a lot too. Tight end. Eric just had an interview with.
Yeah. Yep. That's the guy.
Kolar.
Yep.
With Charlie Kolar.
Yeah.
I would take Charlie Kolar. I really like him.
Tight end sneaky need for the Bills too. You got to get a guy in the building.
Nobody under contract.
No.
We have no tight ends currently under contract next year.
Yeah, Kolar's fun, man. He's got a huge frame, huge wingspan. Sometimes I look at him. I'm like, he's like a poor man's Kyle Rudolph. Like that's just what I see sometimes. But he's Eric's interview was great with him. Super smart kid. So I like that pick a lot.
Let's see. Now I still haven't taken anybody at linebacker. A lot of the same names still there.
Yeah, you got a guy there
at safety.
You got a guy there at linebacker. I think that they would be pretty intrigued with. That's Malcolm Rodriguez out of OK State. He might even be off the board at this point at pick 185. But some of the things I've seen from him, I mean, just really flashy, really quick, really aggressive, kind of flies around. And I think if it's a depth type of guy, I think you bring him in.
Especially starting out in special teams, being able to develop maybe that A.J. Klein linebacker 3 role.
You're just trying to crack the roster at this point, assuming no trades happened, right?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think he would be a great fit there. I was considering Mike Rose, but it's weird. He looks so much smaller on tape, but he's like 6'3". It's crazy.
Let's go back see if still got Gregory Jr. floating out there.
Yeah, Kalen Barnes is sitting there though, and that dude is freaky fast, man.
Can you
Yeah,
scroll
maybe
down
a
a little
return
here?
gig.
Scroll down just a little bit here. Okay, never mind. There's usually a guy sitting around this area that I was looking for.
Let's see.
So I know they have one other pick here. Oh, you want the punter? You want the punter, huh?
We could just
That
do
way-
what we did last week with Joe, where it's a placeholder.
Yeah,
for
I don't know if
punter
it's
to be named
Matareza, but
later.
this is the spot where they pick punter to.
Or no,
be
that's what I was
determined.
looking for. Taylor Stewart. What are your thoughts on double dipping with a guy like Taylor Stewart at corner? Don't love him.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch him, so I can't really speak too much into him. But I mean, he played at a big school, so he obviously, I mean, there's got to be some competition there. That's one I don't know. I'm gonna have to watch him.
Let me know tomorrow. Get on it.
Immediately.
You said you're up at 2 a.m. thinking about corners. I want to make sure.
I know. I should do that, huh? Man, Joshua Azuda is very intriguing at North Carolina.
Yeah,
What?
and here's the thing that I get mock draft exhaustion when I'm getting into these 2 6th round and 7th round picks.
Yeah.
The Bills aren't going to hold on to 3.
They're
picks at
definitely
the
going
end
to
of the
move
draft.
some of the.
They're going to
picks
move something. Bean sort of even alluded to it today. Like, it's a fine game if you can get rid of some of those picks. These are guys you're going to probably either barely make your team, or if they do, it's a year type of a thing. It's not a long term thing. So
And I don't think that they've added Stout or Stonehouse.
No.
They haven't. So the only thing they have is Matareza. So we could just take one and say this is our
punter to be named
X,
later.
The punter to be named later. And like
I
you
would-
said, the late double dip. If we wanted to, you still have Gregory Jr. floating around as well.
Yeah, I would just take him now just to be safe.
I like it.
Probably a little rich, but I mean,
You're still talking about a 6th round pick, or second 6th round pick.
Does Greg get to lay claim to him as his son?
Obviously, I would immediately. He would immediately become my favorite draft pick.
Yeah,
Greg Jr. baby.
Greg Jr. Greg's got a Greg Jr.
I have a Greg Jr. in it. He's actually, I think technically this is Gregory the second, but it still counts. I would claim it.
You can call him Jr. if you want, and nobody would.
No one would. Yeah, no one would question it. I would certainly buy a jersey that said Gregory Jr.
Greg Jr. Yeah.
So do you give the people what they want in a punter here, Russ, or do you go another direction? Is there a spot we haven't picked yet that no safety? Could go a second wide receiver.
Can I talk you into Juanyeh Thomas at safety for this pick? Can I do it?
Yeah, go for it.
Hybrid type linebacker, maybe safety. No one knows where to put this guy. Saran Neal rings a bell to me. Feels like a Saran Neal type of guy who's become a special ace in the NFL, special teams ace. If I can get a guy that's special teams that can hang on to the roster at this point at 7, I'm doing it. I don't think our 7th round pick's got a good chance of making the roster. So if it's gonna be a guy that's freak athlete, stands out on special teams. And maybe you could mold him into one of those positions, that big nickel or something down the road. I don't know. I'm not going to expect that he ever plays meaningful downs of football outside of special teams on this team. So,
and he's named after the guy from Boys to Men, which is pretty fantastic.
And it sounds like a Boys to Men guy.
Yeah. I mean, go for it.
Motown Philly. I got you a Motown Philly, right?
I'm fine with it. I mean, I think you take a guy like that, like you mentioned, kind of that hybrid type player. I think he played 10 games 2020 at safety, played it this past year, but he also, he played kind of everywhere. So I'm okay with that. I mean,
I feel like those guys make good special teams guys because they know
that's the
crack a
smarter investment. Yeah, that's a smarter investment late rather than a roll of the dice on a guy who isn't going to make the roster. But so ultimately, Russ, you guided us to, I think, a pretty exciting draft. We ended up with Jahan Dotson at wide receiver, Kenneth Walker III at running back would be a really exciting addition, Coby Bryant at corner, Cordell Volson at guard, Charlie Kolar at tight end, Malcolm Rodriguez at linebacker, Gregory Jr. as a double dip at corner, and Juanyeh Thomas at safety. I think it's a pretty good class.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. I mean, the obviously the defenders on the back end there, we don't know, but I'm
probably picking 32nd next year.
Yeah, a lot more offense probably than people thought coming from me, but the way that board fell, I felt like we could take advantage of some of the offensive players, and with the way that the conference is shaking up, it's probably a good thing to get some offensive playmakers.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of this Bills.
Some shootouts.
This Bills team, which you must have a fun perspective because you do all the teams. And I think we are already at the point where we're taking for granted how good Brandon Beane has put this roster in a position heading into the draft where cornerback's a screaming need. Everyone sees it in the whole league. Everyone knows they got to walk away with something, right? But outside of that, you really got, if you're staying with all these picks, you have some super flexibility and really taking best player available and maybe even just getting guys that you think are good fits because you've got such a deep roster across the board. Not all teams have that. So I think we're pretty lucky that these drafts can go that way.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, and I think that's the best thing about, I mean, like you mentioned, it's the best thing about being a good football team. You can go in a variety of ways and it doesn't matter. And I said this, I don't know if I said it to you guys earlier in the year, or maybe it was Anthony, but like this team can do whatever they want. And it might not be what everybody likes. Certain people are going to be upset because somebody's always mad at the world, but the way they can go any direction. Like, I honestly think maybe the only one that I'd be like, I don't know, is like running back, just because I don't know if there is a running back worthy of the first round. But if there's a team worthy of drafting one in the first round, it's the Buffalo Bills.
Sure, yeah.
So I don't know, man. Like that kind of got me excited. I'm like, if that's the haul, I mean, Dotson's a day one player. Walker's a day one player. I mean, that's a win. That is a 100% win.
Well, and that's also the kind of move where I would love if they finish day one and day two with that kind of setup. That's the kind of one where I'm hoping that we open day three with a call that Brandon Beane worked out a trade with Joe Shane of their fourth round pick for James Bradbury, and then everything's great, and then we're totally good. We'll take on the contract. We'll figure it out.
Dude, that would be unreal.
Walker and Dotson.
That's what we've been hoping.
Yeah,
Greg and I, after every show, we do a little prayer group seance and just wait for Bradbury to come fall into our laps.
Right now, the Giants literally cannot sign their draft class.
Yeah,
they don't have enough cap space to even.
It's
sign
a game
their
of
draft
chicken
class.
right now.
They're just playing a game of chicken. Yeah. At some point, they're going to come to some agreement. Right now, everybody's asking them to eat a big chunk of his $13.4 million contract. At some point, they're going to reach a line where it's going to be, all right, fine, we'll do this amount of it. So right now I've got it. I want them to eat $6 million of it. The Bills take on $7 million of it, and we'll give you it's still a legit pick. And they get cap relief and a pick for a guy they don't really need anymore. Everybody's happy. We all win here. We're all winners here.
Well, we win the most because of the Super Bowl, but everyone wins. Giants fans will get a medium soda.
Yeah.
My question to you,
we'll buy them all a medium soda.
Dude, that still might be too soon for those fans. But I will say, if they do win the Super Bowl, how much stuff what are you going to drink? What are you going to do? What do you honestly think in your
It's not
mind?
even the drinking. My wife's going to have to take my credit card away
because
I'm going to buy everything. Single thing that
I won't have
says
money for
that
drinking.
On it. I'll buy all the things.
I won't have money for drinking. I will be broke. All those Sports Illustrated were like, get your Super Bowl t-shirt. Click $50. Give it to me. Everyone. All of it.
Yeah, the
my mailman listens to the show.
Replica trophy. All the things.
My mailman listens to the show. I will put him to work for 2 weeks after. That dude is going to be carrying me package after package of Bill's Super Bowl stuff. That my money will be gone. I'll have nothing to drink.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it. I just want to know why is the chat ripping on Detroit right now? I don't understand. Jeff Okuda.
I got no problems with Detroit.
Yeah, everyone's a winner except Detroit. What are we doing?
So I grew up in Western New York. I went to college in Cleveland, and I worked a substantial amount of time in Detroit. There is no set of 3 cities who are all dead certain they are better than the other 2 cities than those 3, and they're all the same thing.
They're all
like all 3 cities are certain they're better than the other 2 cities, and they're the same 3 cities. And they're nice places. There's not so great parts of each city. There's really nice places in each city. There's really good food in each city.
They're all affordable cities.
Yeah, like there's so many. They're awesome in the summer and not so awesome in the winter. Like they're the exact same city, and all 3 cities are dead certain they're way better than the other 2.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's all because of a Great Lake that kind of keeps us all together.
What I will say is, through the drought years, we had very few things we could punch down on.
Yeah.
The Lions, unfortunately for you, Ross, have still been below even the drought Bills most of those years, and so the lines were one of the few teams. Jaguars were there.
I'm aware. I know
that's why people still crap on Detroit a little bit. It's one of the few things we had for some years. So, but I will say,
there's always some respect out of the three cities. I want to see all three teams do well. I root for that. The fans of all three teams deserve goodness in their life.
Absolutely.
It just I hope that we get it first.
So when the Bills play the Lions in the Super Bowl, what do we do? What do I do? What do we do?
Get a bunker.
I will probably go.
Something's gone wrong in the world.
Yes,
bunker
up is about to end.
Yeah, I'll disable my account for a couple days because friendships might get ruined. Bridges will get burned.
Buddy, I'm from New England and lived there throughout the majority of that dynasty as a Bills fan. There's nothing you could say to me that would destroy our friendship. My friends, you wouldn't even know they're friends of mine during the football season with the messages that they send me. You would think that these people are my enemies. They talk to me like.
So. And I will say one final thing here. I do think that the staff and the front office and what's going on in Detroit is a good thing. I do think there's some direction there. I do think that I think it probably needs to be one more really ugly season and then
find a QB
next year snag one of those top end, get yourself a Bryce Young, get yourself a Stroud or whoever that top guy is. But I do think that Detroit's building something. I think that's real.
Yeah, and I mean, they could very well, you say take a quarterback next year, they could be very well taking a quarterback this year. I mean, It's very much in the cards because if, like everybody says, Trayvon Walker. One, I personally, I don't see it with Trayvon, and everybody's like, well, you bet on the upside of the edge rusher, like it's going to work out for you.
Everybody picks an awesome run defender at number 2 overall.
Right, and he's not even that good at it. But also, like you bet on the upside of an edge rusher when in reality you're in a position to bet on the upside of a quarterback. Like take the quarterback, because if it doesn't work out for you, it's only year 2 of your regime. So what, you swung and miss. But like if you're going to be bad next year anyways, if you see Malik for 6 or 7 games and he's god awful, okay, you know what you need to know. And you do the Josh Rosen route, you go and you get your Kyler Murray and you move forward. But like to wait and because like that, like last year I was like, oh, it's going to be great. Sam Howell's going to be a number 1 pick. Spencer Rattler's going to be a number 2 pick. Oh, Howell might be a first rounder. Spencer Rattler's not even around. Like he looks like he works at a Wendy's. Like that's what he looks like. And it's just like, I don't know if I want to wait for that quarterback. Like if Hutchinson's gone at 1, sure, I'd love Kayvon, but if we pass on Malik and he goes to Carolina and Carolina's beating out Tampa Bay to go to the NFC Championship game, I'm going to be I'm going to be mad, because it's like, this is why we're the laughing stock of the NFL, because we bet on the upside of positions that, yes, they matter, but the most important position in football is the quarterback spot. If the Bills would not have bet on the upside of Josh Allen, they would not be where they are today.
Yeah, that's spot on. Yeah, you have to bet on.
And I thought Josh Allen was a bum. I mean, I thought he was going to be a bum. I really did.
Well, we're glad you're wrong, but we're hoping that you're right on several of the things that you projected here for tonight's show. Russ, let the folks know, we're almost there. Now that your drink almost came out your nose.
Yeah.
Let the fans know where they can find you and find more of your work.
Yep. On Twitter at Russ NFL Draft. Smash that follow button. I think most of you probably already do. I've been around Cover One for 5 years now, so you probably follow me and you know me. But if you haven't, smash the follow button. Check out the draft guide. It's free to download. Have at it for draft night and for all 3 days of the draft. If you're feeling generous, you're like, oh, I want to give this guy money. Don't give it to me. Give it to charity. There's 3 charities in there. Help kids with cancer, help people that are hungry, or help our soldiers and veterans that have served this country and they've struggled so much, and just help those people out. So give it to them and it'll go a long way. But other than that, find me next week live at the Brass Rail for Woodward Sports across from Comerica Park. I'll be joining, I think, Anthony and some of the guys on the second night of the draft on Friday. Mixing and matching Woodward Sports, Cover One, doing the whole thing. But, we're taking off. We're almost here, a week away, starting tomorrow.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you for your time, Russ. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. All right. So obviously always awesome to have Russ on and get us ready for this draft. Make sure you guys are checking him out. Does an awesome job, and everything that he does, but on the draft show and going to be live with our guys next week. But this was another fun one. We've got one last show next week before we take off right into the NFL draft itself. Yeah, next week, a quick surprise, because we have to get up at the crack of dawn Wednesday morning. We're going to be coming up on Tuesday night next week. We're going to be switching with the guys of the Hook.
Might even be a quick show.
Yeah, it might be a quick show on Tuesday
I'm looking at bedtime
night,
now.
And they're going to be with you on Wednesday night. So take a look out for that. We'll have it on social media and warn everybody. But just a warning for you guys, we are going to be going Tuesday night next week. And then during the draft, between Aaron, Eric, and myself, we're going to have live shows every day.
You're going to get sick of our faces.
We're going to be putting out so much.
Maybe not Greg.
All 3 days
of
of
nice hair.
Yeah,
you'll get sick of seeing my bald head on TikTok.
You'll get sick of some of the pieces of it. Yeah. We're going to be doing tons of little videos, tons of things out the entire time. And we're going to be there live at the draft all 3 days, giving you immediate reactions for division picks, for our picks, for big trades, and obviously reaction shows to what's going on with the Bills. So keep an eye out for it. We're going to have tons of content out there for everybody. Make sure you're looking for it. Aaron, what do you have for the people?
That's it, man. Prepping for this next week here. Really just getting through this last push. I was joking around the other day. I tweeted out that I had tweeted my mock draft 38.7 or something like that because it's just getting ridiculous at this point. All the speculation, all the things, this stuff's all pretty much locked. I think these teams have good feel of their boards and these players.
I've done 3 more mock drafts in the background while
we're me too. Yeah, I'm just mocking over here. The mocks are simulating themselves over on my screen. I wrote a mock simulator. So no, it's just it's a tad too long, the draft season for me, and it's getting to this last point, and I just
made the point before. I'm glad we waited, and it was still too long.
It's just this last week. It's the people that hadn't waited, they're so antsy that the content that's coming out just becomes crazy. Everyone's overanalyzed everybody to the point where, like I said to Russ, everybody's telling me every mock draft I post, that guy's not going to be there. There's no way that guy's. We've gone into total absolutes, which we warned at the beginning of this draft process. Let's not speak in that stuff because we see it every year. So this last week's going to be tough on Twitter. It's going to be everyone's got their absolutes locked in and what exactly is going to happen, and none of it's going to happen. We're all going to be shocked, and we're going to make Greg Tompsett GIF faces live throughout the draft all night long.
I can't wait. So make sure you guys are checking out everything going on the network. We got tons of good shows every single night of the week. Tons of great video breakdowns. Lots of little clips coming out there. I think Eric just dropped a new video of Rachaad White, a running back I really like. Make sure you're checking him out of Arizona State. Did the Charlie Kolar interview and a great breakdown there. Tons of little stuff like that coming up. Make sure you're checking out all the shows that we have going on. But enjoy it. You guys were awesome in the chat tonight. Tonight was a ton of fun. But on behalf of Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are